Right, ladies and gentlemen, after 81 days, we are finally back sitting down recording a podcast together.
Progress with Us, episode 13. Well, technically it should be 14, but as you may have seen before, we had some technical difficulties, but it wasn't down to us. Stuff like that happens.
I'm sure we'll get the guest back on at some point, but it was disappointing. However, as you may have noticed, we are back and we are in a new studio, so it's not quite as grey and white. Got a bit of colour, got the Progressus pinky purple behind us.
Yeah, so as you may have seen on the Instagram pages and on everything else, we have done a little bit of a rebranding, trying to, not trying to look so grey and dull, trying to make it just pop a little bit more.
Yeah, it'll be done by the time this goes out, won't it?
Yeah, 100%.
So there's some other things that we have built out as well, which I'm sure we will talk about perhaps towards the end of the episode if we've got a bit of time, because we're just doing a test run in the new studio, making sure that everything runs smoothly. So for this episode, we thought that we would just take some time to reflect back on the episodes so far, and what we've done is we've gone through each of the episodes and taken a lesson that we liked from each of the guests, and we're just going to digest it and just have a little bit of a chat.
We've come a long way from the episode 1 with the Morley boys.
Yeah,
here we are.
100%. I can't wait until we've done hundreds and hundreds of episodes and we get to look back on that as episode 1. I remember we just didn't even know what to ask them. I remember
it was a bit of a fluke episode, wasn't it, really? We kind of just showed up and rolled with it.
I remember being like, we could ask them about AI, because it was when AI was kind of taking off and we thought it'd be a good question, but we've come a long way. But from that podcast, Mr. Jack Eli said something that I really liked about halfway through, and he was basically talking about their personal shopping platform and how a lot of the people that come to them do it because they see personal shopping as the vehicle to get to where they want to be. However, he said that a lot of people should just take the time to figure out where you want to be before you figure out how you're going to do it. So, I feel like we kind of fell into this category at university.
Yeah, 100%.
In that we thought that what we wanted was success in whatever metric that was, and we thought university was the vehicle to get there.
Obviously, since then things have changed quite drastically, I'm not going to lie, for the both of us.
But that how was different, and it just didn't really align with what we wanted to do, and it ended 100%. Up not being sustainable. So
I think that kind of moves on to what we were saying about with Ellis as well. So obviously in our second episode, we had Ellis, who was running a clothing brand at the time, which he is wearing right here.
Resources.
But what he was speaking on was the fact that he had a great job and he was doing well for himself at the time, but it was kind of whether he wanted to take that leap and doing something further that kind of gave him his purpose, which again, it's kind of like what we've done with the podcast and what Jack was saying at the start.
I think, especially with Ellis's situation, which is similar to ours, there's a concept called the region beta paradox, which is basically when you're in this weird middle ground. If you were to imagine everything's going brilliantly and you're happy with your life, and nothing's going well and you could do anything to get out of it, when you're in that middle ground thing, so for example with us it was uni. Uni wasn't terrible. If we had have seen it through, we would have probably gone on to do well. We're not idiots. We would have had good degrees and we would have had skills from the degrees and whatever else, and it wasn't quite bad enough to be like, right, fuck this, I'm going to drop out straight away. It takes some activation energy to get out of that middle zone.
Yeah, I think, do you know what, the kind of reoccurring theme with that is, with all our guests as well, is the fact that people don't want to leave that kind of comfortable situation like uni for us. And do you know what it is as well? A lot of people kind of have their passion project and then their earner, which seems to be the thing that kind of gives people a bit more stability and going for these, like doing the thing that they want to do, which has been the case with, I guess, Ellis and also Darnell. Yeah,
it was interesting in those early episodes because we knew Darnell because of the boxing boots and what he was posting on Instagram.
Restoration plug.
And we knew Ellis through Vitae and what we'd seen on his Instagram. Yeah. And I thought that was their main income. That was their main 100%. Vehicle. But it actually turns out that when we spoke to Ellis that he runs a cosmetics, what would you call it? They supply people with cosmetics, B2B. They're drop shipping suppliers.
And Darnell obviously does the dog collars. But for both, if you want to find out more, you can find the episode.
Yes, you can find the episode. We actually have a playlist called Feature Length Progress With Us episodes, where all the episodes are there in order if you want to follow the story from the start all the way through these lessons as well. That was an interesting one about Darnell as well, because Darnell not only is training to be a professional boxer, and not only doing all the shoe restoration and then customs, but then he also has the econ business as well, which was that. I think even in the episode when he said it, we were both like, that makes a bit more sense.
I think the one thing with everybody is they're not relying on just one thing to see them through as well, rather than everybody's kind of got their hands in a few different things, haven't they? So
yeah, I like it as well, because I mean, especially when you're our age, if you have something that you have that much interest in, like we have this interest in the podcast, and Ellis had it in the clothing brand, and Darnell, etc. You want to do that, and if you really want to do that, these people have clearly, including us, have found a way to do something else on the side so that that can become sustainable and then grow over a long period of time, which is good.
Yeah, 100%. Shows that if you really want to do something, you just got to get on with it and do it. There's always a way to make it work.
Episode 4, Mason and Tom. Now, this is actually our most viewed episode by, the gap between 1, 2 and 3 is 300. And then our 4th mode viewed episode
about 1,000.
is about 1,000. So a lot of people really, I guess, I don't know whether that was their traffic sources or YouTube
I think it's
search.
also because it's such an upcoming thing. I guess people don't understand the behind of really what goes on with their business model. So it's quite interesting.
One of the best lessons from them that can be applied to anything, and this is something that, we will talk about this later from the episode that we did, that I think, obviously we were starting out and we weren't sure how to make a podcast work, but their ethos in business is just speed and getting started and implementing it and failing fast, which is something that, we have done with the podcast as well.
I think it goes back to that kind of throwing yourself in at the deep end. You just learn as you go along, don't you? And it makes it a lot quicker and a lot better. Like, I think, obviously, at the start of the podcast, we got... Oh, I don't like the sound of that.
Does that mean it's turned off?
Possibly.
Should we pause and check? Yeah. That thing about moving fast and failing fast, I've not just seen it in the podcast, but in my email marketing business as well.
Yeah.
There are problems that I have encountered since starting that I didn't even know I would have before I started. Even if you get everything absolutely perfect before you start and get it to exactly where you want it to be, even if you do spend all of that time getting it there, you're still going to, when you start, encounter things that you didn't know were there, and you're not going to be able to prepare for them anyway. So you might as well just get started and figure it out on the way.
There's always going to be those unexpected problems, and that's just, it's just part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, like even this today, trying to hook up all the mics to here, we wouldn't have known that this was a problem unless we had just come down and tested the new studio.
You're seeing the 20-minute episode, what we've had about 3 or 4 hours just trying to get the camera set up, get the mic set up, and even going back to the first episode, it was it was a day sorting that out. It was
the first episode, and what happened in that day could be a podcast of itself.
I mean, if you'd like to see that as well, that could be,
we could do a mini YouTube video on it.
A little YouTube video.
But you know what? That's actually interesting, because the next point that we've got written down for episode 5, which was the boys at Organised Chaos, is that you don't actually see, and they spoke about this on the podcast, but you don't actually see what goes into not just those club nights, but pretty much everything in general.
I think content is just you show yourself how you want to, like how you want your persona to be seen or whatever. But there's also so much that goes in behind the scenes. Like obviously those two lads, they're both Joe and Finn, proper hard working. They do a lot of marketing, and they've got they kind of I don't want to say run the agency, but
so they work for a marketing agency, and Organised Chaos is just one of their clients. But I assume they're probably one. Obviously they did the club promotion before, but I imagine they're probably one of the few people at that agency who are willing to go and spend their Wednesday nights walking up and down Carver Street interviewing freshers.
And I guess I'm not necessarily fortunately and unfortunately, that's kind of been what they're known for now, isn't it? They're asking your body count, but it's good. It's people just, there's a lot more that goes into it behind the scenes. I'll put it like that.
Especially, and something that I didn't even think about is those club events. They go on, they have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I think they only have Sundays where they don't have an event. And every single week, it is their responsibility to make sure that those clubs, those massive clubs, are full every single week with people on the table so it looks good and people on the floor so it looks busy. And that happens every single week. And then in the usual times of year when people have time off, that's when they have to put on the seasonal events like Christmas and New Year. They don't get to go home.
I can vouch for them as well. I was working at one of their events this weekend, and I could see them all on the phone sorting it out all through the event, trying to make sure everybody's coming down. So I know they do put in a lot of graft behind the scenes, and gotta give them kudos for that as well.
Yeah, they were top lads. And then episode 6, we had Bailey. Bailey Sallows. That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
Bailey on again, who was on in the trio in episode 1, but we thought he'd come back by himself because he was kind of squidged in the middle of the sofa between Lyndon and Jack.
But he had a good story to tell, and he's another one. He's a hard working lad as well. He's done a lot, hasn't he? And it goes back with him as well to kind of what Ellis was saying actually about the middle ground of taking that leap of kind of losing that security and doing something that could potentially maybe not, you won't make as much money at the start, but eventually it'll pay off down the line. Which is what he said about joining the Morley boys.
It was something that I first heard from Hormozy, but he just basically said that when you're younger, when you're our age, although you may see that there is a lot of money out there, especially if you're in the online business space or whatever, 100%. You might see that there's a lot of money out there, and a lot of people will be telling you how much they made, etc. But when you break it down, they only made that money because they had the skills, and they had to learn those skills. So if you can break time up into seasons of learning and sacrificing your earning and then going into a season of earning once you've got the skill. 100%. That's what Bailey was talking about with Morley, because he said, I took this opportunity because I knew of everything that would come for it, and I had to take a little pay cut, but he will have learned things doing that job. I know he's back doing Switch Up Sneakers now, but even with his own venture, he will have learned about content, he will have a much bigger network, he will have learned communication skills, just other.
I think there was a lot of. I was going to say, I think there was a lot of interesting lessons and stuff that you can take away from that episode. To be honest, I think
it was a really good episode.
Yeah, we have said that it was probably one of our best episodes that we've put out, and I think it was it was just a good conversation with Bailey. So I'm glad we had him on his own. To be honest,
it was probably the most enjoyable episode because it just felt, because Bailey's kind of one of the only guest.
He's the same age as us.
Who's the same age as us. So it just felt like 3 20-year-olds just having a bit of a chat about the fact that we all used to have YouTube channels when we were younger, and now we have a YouTube channel 10 years later as well.
100%. I think, obviously, if you want to see any of these episodes, maybe we'll put them in the description. Just put a link to each episode or something like that.
Absolutely.
So if you want to go and, for reference, see what we're actually talking about, if you haven't watched them already. Obviously, you should have watched them already, but if you haven't.
So episode 7 with the lovely Josephine Webster. That was a great episode. I really enjoyed that. It was
a good episode, and that is the reason that we are here as well.
Yeah. So if you didn't know, we are currently recording at the Three Ravens Agency down near Kelham Island in Sheffield, which is our new studio.
It is.
And Josephine reached out to us and told us that she was starting a creative agency, which is something that we actually spoke to her about on the podcast. And we came down, checked it out, saw the setup. Thought, do you know what? I reckon we should make the move here, and I'm glad I'm excited to film here.
Here we are. Look at it. It's a big change from I won't even say
the Curious.
The
Curious. You can say the Curious.
Don't know if I want to give the free promo.
But one of my favourite lessons from the Josephine podcast, which I felt had even more significance to it in the fact that she was having the same problems that we were having when she was younger as we were having now, and that was just removing yourself from other people's opinions.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, especially for us starting the podcast, because I know like one of our biggest things at the start was kind of like, what's everyone going to think, how are we feeling, like all of that, and it's always I think it's the build up to doing something. I feel like once we posted our first episode, obviously we talk about this a lot in our own last recent episode that we did with just me and Charlie, but that initial feeling of like, wow, this is something completely different, what is everybody going to think, and getting over that. But once you're over it, you're flying.
I would say that especially posting stuff, but not just posting stuff, like even when we were starting the pod, I remember the first time I really experienced this being scared to do something was when I reached out to Jack
at
Morley, and I remember sitting down on my bed with the camera turned on my phone, rolling, and I was like, say something. And then once I'd sent it, and I was like, I'm not going to die. Like, nothing's going to happen. 100%. Like, it's sent and it's all right. If you can get over that initial doing and realising that nothing bad is really going to come from it, and the worst that will ever happen from posting something online is someone's not going to like it, which doesn't really matter anyway, because you're going to die and they're going to die one day, or outreaching to someone and realising that the worst they're going to say is no. Like, that's the worst thing they're going to say. Or, you know, that goes for anything, not just posting 100%. Things online, but getting over that thing about people's opinions. Because at the end of the day, everyone's got their own fights and 100%. Problems that they're dealing with. Like, no one, like, at the end of the day, maybe when we first posted it, people took attention, but no one gives a shit what Charlie and Jacob are doing. You know what I mean? Like, they really don't.
I think it just goes back to that initial of just do it. Because I think for me, it was, like you say, it's always the build-up. And then I just think back to the first 15 minutes of the pod that we did with the Morley boys. I was like, all right, fucking hell, we're doing this now, and we're here. And then after that, you're just like, oh, this actually isn't so bad, and it's a conversation.
That was the weirdest feeling. Like, I remember when we turned the camera on, I remember looking at Jack, and
I'd seen it in my head so many times before.
And Jack was looking at me, and I was just thinking, oh my God, we're recording a podcast right now. So the next episode after that was Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson.
That was a big episode. When we got Johnny on, I remember thinking, this just adds another layer of credibility to what we're doing. You know?
I think the biggest thing that he really highlighted was the importance of mentorship to a degree. I think, and we also heard the same thing from Lee as well. But yeah, I think it was really good getting him on within the first. What episode was Johnny? 8 episodes as well. Our first world champion. Yeah. We have, in fact, had 2 world champions on as well within the first 12 episodes. But yeah, man, it was good.
That thing, I think the conversations that we had with Johnny on mentorship were different than the conversations we had with Lee on mentorship 100%. In the way that I just can't imagine Johnny having that little self-confidence. Like, the way that he described it, he was like, I thought I was shit, everyone else thought I was shit. I would go home, get beaten up by my brother and my sister, and even when he won the world title, his brother and sister would still be like, you? Like, I remember that's what he said, he was like, you?
Yeah.
And the fact that throughout all of that, even though Johnny had such strong negative beliefs about himself, Brendan just slowly over the years brought it out of him and believed in Johnny more than Johnny ever, even still to this day, it seems like he believed in himself.
I think, do you know what, the one thing that's kind of similar about everyone, whether that be with the bodybuilding, the boxing, with Lee, with Josephine, is that kind of accountability. I think that's the one thing that everyone's kind of mentioned, whether that be through mentorship or your friends or your trainer or whoever. Having someone or something to keep you accountable and to keep you going on is a huge part of kind of going forward.
And that's where I found Mr. Duncan, who was episode 9. He, you know, we talked about this extensively on the podcast, and I've talked about it in videos or whatever, but Lee was great for me. And he's such a good guy, and something that he talked about on the podcast, which I'm glad he brought up, because it's something that he talked to me about within maybe the first 6 weeks of working with him. And he was talking about how to do something like outreach or post a video, you have to get yourself into a different state, and how you can basically just like play with your emotions and get into a different state. And the example that he gave was when you're not feeling like going to the gym, and then you go to the gym and you come back and you feel better. It's because your state has changed.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think with some, not all of the things that Lee talks about in that episode, some people might watch it and just think, oh, it's bullshit. It's wishy-washy, it's spirit. Do you want to check it?
Just keep going, do you know what I'm do it?
It's, you know, more spiritual stuff and whatever else. But that is a tangible example of anyone who has ever been to the gym and didn't want to go to the gym. You feel different when you come out. And that is your state changing. And being able to tap into that when, whether that's sports or business or something like this or work or whatever it is, being able to tap into that is like a superpower.
So for our first episode into the Double Digit double digits. We had Zak, who is a luxury car salesman, and is actually quite close to us in a sense that he is family friends with our good friend Elias.
He's been in and around of our lives in a weird way since we were like 14.
I'm pretty sure I cleaned his car when I was about 15 working at a car wash. But yeah, it was a really interesting episode. If you've not seen the little trailer we made as well, that was pretty interesting.
Do you know what? We should... I find that. I was just thinking if we could do something with the new car and the old car and get Zak down for like another trailer or something. I don't know. A re-promo.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we... I don't know, it's pretty interesting. He's got a good story as well. Obviously, he's been selling cars since what, sixth form time? Something like that. From flipping the little Ford KAs all the way up until SVJs now, so...
He was interested, and I actually, the point on here, I don't even think he talked about this on the pod. I think this was just us before. Mm-hmm. And he was walking me through the process of how he does his car reels. And I found it really interesting. So he was like, right, I will look at the car and then think where the car would, like, which location the car would look best in.
Yeah.
Take the car there, depending on what the weather is like. So if it's like a brighter car, he was like, we'd wait for a sunnier day to do it. But if it's a black car, he'd do it on a rainy day. And then he was talking about the attention to detail that he takes when it comes to using the audios for the cars. And now I can't watch any of his videos without thinking, do you know what? That audio fits that car so well.
100%. I think it shows, obviously he said he did art at uni as well, didn't he? So his creativity is shown through the Apollo page, and you can see he puts a lot of effort into it. He had a proper right camera setup as well when we went over there, obviously.
I just like that because on the episode and in person, he's a really relaxed, kind of laid back, bubbly guy, super 100%. Friendly, but then he does also have that, you wonder how they've gotten to the point where they are at, and then you listen to him talking about the attention to detail that he takes on such small things.
I think Zak is probably a prime example of, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, because he is incredibly passionate about cars, and you can see it when he's speaking. And when we were in the showroom, obviously, as well. I
was going to say, he was just kind of cruising around, looking super comfy, just happy being where he was.
I mean, they've got an amazing place there, I'm not going to lie. It was...
It's massively influenced my decision to get my new car. Like, I remember after we went back and I went and got in the course, where I thought, something's got to change.
But, yeah, I don't know, it's great. Again, watch the episode.
It's all in the playlist. And... the episode after that was our second world champion, Mr.
Croggan. And something that he spoke about, which I think is a really good way of putting it and can be applied to a lot of different things, was being a 95% bodybuilder, which means 95% of the time he's dialed in, he's training, he's eating, his sleep, everything is on point. But that extra 5% is what keeps him going in the 95%. He's just spending time with his girlfriend, friends, downtime, doing everything else. And I think that can really be applied to anything if you want to do something properly like that, can't it? So
I think that was one of the first explanations I've heard of someone who has found a balance, but not a balance in the sense of like one in and one out. Yeah. So like, you have a great week, so you can go completely hammer the weekend, which is like a one in, one out, and you just end up at net. But nailing it the majority of the time and having that 5% that keeps you going and keeps you in a net positive.
Because I think when we spoke about balance, the one thing that Josh kind of said is, like, if you want to be really good at something or be successful at something, there isn't really such thing as balance. You're always going to have to put in that 95%. But
I think he just landed really nicely with that explanation between the crowd of people who say, you need to live your life and go out and party in your 20s and whatever. And then the other end of the spectrum who are like, you need to work, you need to be in your room all the time, you need to be working, lock yourself away with a laptop for 6 months. Whereas, if you're hitting 95% of things, you're allowed that 5%.
Yeah, it's a different sort of balance. It's the uneven balance rather than just the classic 50-50.
And then episode 12, there was no guest. It was just us. And if we could take a lesson from ourselves from that episode, it would be similar to what the OF Money Boys said, but get started faster. Like we, as we said in that episode, decided to do a podcast in July, didn't film the first episode until October.
Yes, we were kind of even at a halt with the first couple episodes as well. It took us, in 4 months we filmed 2 episodes at the start, something like that? 3 months?
We filmed...
I might have got that really wrong, to be honest.
3 in 3 months.
3 in 3 months, that was
and then filmed 9 in 1 month. That was nuts.
It was good though. But I think as well as that, you can see kind of the difference to our first episode watching back on the last one we done. Obviously, I hope that everyone who's been watching through has kind of seen not just the progression of maybe the episodes, but just the progression of us two as kind of interviewers as well. I think, I like to think we've come a decent way even from that first episode.
Absolutely. Do you know what? Doing Project Kaizen has directly and indirectly helped me to really articulate my thoughts better in conjunction with writing the newsletter as well.
100%.
Because I've just been writing about my videos but in written form as well, so I get a bit more of a better understanding of it.
Double time.
So Alex Hormozy did a video that we watched the other day, which only reinforced our idea of what we were going to do anyway.
100%.
Where he was talking about how formal education, so universities and higher qualifications, that market is declining by $50 billion a year. And e-learning and online courses and online education is growing by $40 billion year on year. And at the moment, I think it seems like a lot of creators or entrepreneurs are selling courses. And I think at the moment they're perceived as, some at least are perceived as scams or people selling things online. And people are very easy to criticize that people are making money from selling this. But the way the metadata is pointing is that this is something that is here to stay. And there, like we said, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people selling things online. And we thought that based on our experiences in the last year, we invested individually and together in multiple different courses and online business ventures and didn't see much success with them. Now, part of that was probably down to the fact that we could have applied them better. But part of that was also down to the fact that there is a lot of noise out there and a lot of people who aren't selling a truly good service. So what we thought we could put together is an all-in-one, verified side hustle and mentor portal where you guys can come and find mentors that we have used, people who have come on the podcast. So these are people that we know personally and that we know sell a great product. We have seen their testimonials. We have seen their courses. Some of them are even clients of mine, and I see all of their back end. I see their member data. I see their results, and all of it is absolutely excellent. And we wouldn't recommend anything to our audience
that we wouldn't use ourselves
or that we don't think is a genuinely great service, which is why we have created the Progressus Portal, which is going to be completely free for you guys to access on our new website.
And we understand, obviously, a lot of people can be skeptical about these things, but if you want to know a bit more behind our individual creators and people on there, you can go and watch the episodes of the podcast.
Exactly. You get to see them speak and explain what they do in long form. And as well, this is just the first version of what we are building. We are looking to partner with some brilliant creators, people that we have used. There are a couple examples of people who we're in talks with now,
100%.
who I have used, 2 people in particular that have basically just through their education helped me get my first few clients through email marketing, as well as people who have helped us with the podcast as well, mentors and everything. So that will be all completely free for you guys to access on our new website. As I said, it's the first version of it. We'll be partnering with more people
right now.
More people as well as brands that we use personally and just anything that we can recommend to our audience that we think would benefit you guys, because we've had a lot of conversations with friends, people in our network, people even reaching out to us who have just seen the podcast, who have asked about mentors or where we've learned certain things or whatever else. And we aren't in a position at the moment to teach any of these things. Like I'm not advanced enough in email marketing, and we're not advanced enough as a podcast to teach people how to do podcasts. But there are people who are, and you can get it straight from the horse's mouth, the people who have taught us and the people that we use. And like I said, that will be completely free for you guys to access on our new website. So that's progressusnetwork.com, and you'll be able to go there and find everything there as well. We're going to be promoting special partnerships. And also early access to things that we're releasing through our newsletter. So if you go to progressusnetwork.com, you'll also be able to find our newsletter section there, where you will get an email every single Monday, and you will hear about things before anyone else does it as well.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things about this is there's absolutely no niche either. This can be everything. It's not just for everyone that wants to start their own business. It could be for the fitness side of things, business side of things, general life side of things. Anything that you guys want to learn that we've covered on the podcast will be there for you to access for free.
And the vision that we have for this is eventually we will interview and partner with experts in their industry. So no matter what it is that you want to do, whether that's you want to find a mindset mentor, or you want to learn copywriting like we have, or you want to learn how to start a podcast, or whatever it is, that we will have a person in there for absolutely everything. So video editing, if you want to do anything niche, we will have someone in there for you. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, and feel free to ask us any questions about it if you have any. We're always
if
there.
You are a creator or you believe that you sell a great service, get in touch with us. We'll have a look at your back end. We'll have a look at what you're included.
Potentially get you on the podcast.
Potentially get you on the podcast. So, long story short, the Progressus Portal should be live by the time we have this podcast out. The link will be in our bio, and you will be able to access it for completely free.
Yeah.
So
there we go. That concludes episode 13/14, unfortunately, but of our new amazing setup here. Again, big shout out to the Free Ravens for supplying us with the new podcast setup. And we'll catch you guys all in the next episode.
It's been a pleasure to sit down and speak to you for once in a while. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the episode.